Hello, so before we start today, I just wanted to say a quick thank you to our friend Tom Hayes for suggesting this case for our episode today. We hope you enjoy, and on with the show. Hello, welcome back to the podcast. So me and Kirsty forgot last time to introduce ourselves on our very first episode. So I'm Olivia.
And I am Kirsty.
And today we're going to be talking about the relationship of Alex Skeel and Jordon Worth. Most of our episodes, obviously, naturally, because this is a true crime podcast, start off with a trigger warning. But today I'm just going to say a special one because this is a case where we're focusing on domestic abuse, and there's quite a lot. It's quite a toxic relationship and it's really violent. If you don't want to listen, then you can leave and we'll love you and leave you. But if not, you can stay and have a cup of tea and just be calm.
And if you want, we can, when we get to the really violent parts, just pop, like, if you want to fast forward a couple of minutes, now's the time to do it.
So today we're talking about the relationship of Alex and Jordon. It was a relationship that resulted in Alex being days away from death and Jordon becoming the first female to be found guilty of coercive control under UK law. Alex grew up in Bedford and his life revolved around football. He played football every Saturday and Sunday, which to me, I'm like, he must have been dedicated because that seems a lot, but I don't know. I don't know if you're a boy, you play that amount anyway.
It is a lot to give up your weekend, like every single weekend though, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's dedication.
But naturally, because of this, he never really cared about girls or relationships growing up. That was until he met Jordon Worth on the 3rd of June in 2012. They were both 16 when they first met. Alex had gone to see his friend at a performance, and Jordon also came to see her friend. They started talking, and he remembered feeling really cool when telling people he'd been seeing her at the weekends, which that really made me just like my heart warm, because I remember people in school just loving to talk about their girlfriends. And apparently she was confident and really showed an interest in him.
You know, when you have your first like boyfriend or girlfriend, your first love, it's like, and he did this and we did that. And
it was such a big deal when people got together as well. And then when people broke up as well, it was the biggest drama.
Can you remember that thing you used to do in school where you would write, just for example, it's our name, so Kirsty loves Olivia, and then you would write the numbers of every single letter for the name, and then you would add them up, and then at the end you came to a certain number, and the percentage of that number was like how lucky you were to like last in love. Yeah.
There is another Jordon in the story. He was Alex's childhood best friend, and he told us in the BBC documentary, which is linked below, and I really think people should watch that because you get to see his family and his friends. You kind of see his injuries that he suffered, and it's just in a lot more detail. Alex's family were going on holiday, but Alex and his big brother weren't going, so naturally they were going to have a house party, as we all do.
As you do.
And Jordon attended this party and seemed to be a part of the group, and they had some drinks and sang Bastille on the shed roof. Alex's friend Carly said that Jordon was quiet but seemed lovely, but Alex's mum Geraldine didn't hold the same view. She said Jordon was tricky and that she couldn't understand the concept of a close family. Jordon even used to ask Alex, why do you all sit around a table and eat dinner?
What?
Which I think is really sad. But
that is really sad.
I kind of just assume that all families do that, but obviously there's probably quite a lot of families that don't do that.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I just always grew up that we sat at the dinner table and ate dinner together when we were kids.
Eventually, Jordon's guard lowered and her true colours began to show. She first started saying what colours she didn't like, and so what clothes Alex couldn't wear, and then how he should have his hair.
Ugh.
My opinion is that you shouldn't be in relationships when you're young. And I did used to be in relationships when I was young, but I really regret it because I think you need to be like a whole person and within yourself before you can be with anyone else.
Yeah, especially as well when you're in such a, as we're going to find out, such a toxically controlling relationship as this one. The years that he's like in that relationship are such formative years for development and growth. How can you develop as a person when someone's telling you, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that, you're not allowed to wear that color? It must be so damaging and triggering to your mental growth later in life.
And when you have to kind of dedicate yourself to school and figuring out what you want to do in your life, and then you're like revolving that around someone else, the recipe for disaster, really.
It really is.
In April 2013, on Alex's 18th birthday, he and his family went to see The Lion King. Alex went to the toilet, he came out and saw Jordon was nowhere to be seen, and he had no idea where she had gone. They looked for her for an hour, and then when he finally found her, she was laughing. Now, I know we all know someone who on a night out, they tend to get drunk. I go on an adventure. And if you don't know that person, it is you. And
our friend that we have to put on the lead, we have a mutual friend that's an ultimate bailer, and we always joke that we're going to get her reins on a night out.
But also, I kind of had this habit because I'm like, I'm out, and then I'm like, okay, I'm exhausted and I want to go home. And so I do just take myself off. And then Tom always knows where I am there, because he's always like, I know Liv, she's gone home, she's sleeping. And then he has my location on as well, so he can just see where I am. I genuinely think, because she was laughing when he found her, I think she kind of just wanted to I think she wanted to see how much he cared about her, and so she could feel good about herself, like kind of be like, how long would he look for her before he gave up?
That's a really good take on it, actually, because I always saw it as her being attention, like the focus isn't on me, it needs to be on me. But I like that take.
Well, I think it definitely thanks. I think it definitely was for attention, because the whole family was looking for her, but I definitely think it was like a test of sorts. And then kind of
very narcissistic.
Yeah, exactly. Literally just making the whole evening about you on his birthday, when you've gone, when I'm just assuming that his family paid for her to go see The Lion King as well.
Bang out of order.
So Alex's parents told him that something wasn't right with her, but Alex said that they were wrong and she's fine when they're alone. And while I was doing research for this, apparently that when you're talking to someone and trying to comfort someone who's in a toxic relationship or a controlling relationship, the last thing you should ever do is try and slate the abuser to the other person, because they'll just stand to defend and shut the whole conversation down, and then you won't be able to get through to them.
Yeah, and then you just run the risk of them isolating you out their life, someone that they probably need at their side.
And then it kind of gives more ammo to the abuser to be like, she said something bad about me, and so you can't see them, because it's like us against the world now.
Yeah, exactly. It's completely like that.
So sometime around Alex's birthday, Geraldine, his mum, threw a party for him and his twin brother. She just wanted to spoil them. Like in the documentary, she was literally just like, I love them so much, I wanted to spoil them and show them off to everyone. Geraldine's friend had a daughter who was close friends with the family and attended the party, but Jordon said that if she was there, then she wasn't going to go. But she did go, and I think this was probably because she wanted to track them both and see how they acted around each other and kind of just, I don't know, maybe fend her off. And then halfway through the party, Jordon started screaming abuse at the girl. The music stopped and the around 100 people at the party just watched. 100 people was amazing. But
yeah, that's a big party.
And I'm not sure about this, but later in the documentary, Alex's mum referred back to this girl as the girl Jordon attacked. So I think she actually physically assaulted her on the first meeting. From my experience, if you don't want a girl to steal your man, you do not
be throwing punches.
Yeah. So our friend Jordan Parker, who's Alex's best friend, took Alex into the bathroom. Alex started crying to go back because he wanted to look after her. They stayed together, and then around 1 or 2 weeks later, they were having more arguments, and she snapped Alex's SIM card. And that's when Alex realised that everyone else was right and that there was something wrong with her, and he was done. And so he cut it off. And his best friends and family were really relieved that this chapter was seemingly over and done with. And at this point, she could have chosen to leave him alone and maybe seek some counselling to work through her issues and become better for herself and others around her, and hopefully learn a lesson to kind of not be with anyone for a while. But she did come back into his life, and she announced that she was pregnant.
Ugh.
And this bit made me chuckle a bit, because in the documentary, Alex's mum was literally like, I wasn't falling for that. So
was she actually pregnant, or was she just doing the horrible lying about it?
So she got his friends to pick her up, which I thought was weird, and they brought her to his house where she told everyone that she was pregnant. And then Geraldine just wasn't having it at all, and she didn't believe her and demanded that Jordan did a pregnancy test at their house, but she was actually pregnant.
Oh shit.
I know. I was like, because I was dead set that she was lying, and then when that came out, I was like, fuck, he's fucked, like he's in it now.
I did not see that coming.
Alex was prepared to support her and the baby, but didn't want to be with her. However, he didn't actually hear from her for a year. It's very bizarre. I don't understand why she did that. Jordan and Alex's son Thomas was born on the 19th of May 2014. Alex's mum received a text from Jordan asking if she'd be willing to meet her grandson. Literally, the text said, "Are you willing to meet your grandson?"
After not a year, after like
Yeah.
ages of no. So like she tells them they're pregnant and then she goes away for like 9 months and then just texts them. It's like, hey, do you want to meet your grandson?
Geraldine did go and meet the baby Thomas, and then Thomas reminded her so much of Alex that she fell in love with him completely and straight away. And she said that she had an instant need to be his grandma.
Oh,
And Alex
that's
was
such a
really,
nanny thing to say, isn't
I
it?
know, and Alex was really angry that he went to see her. Hello, so we have our first fact checking fairy of the day. And what I meant to say was Alex was very angry that Geraldine went to see the baby Thomas, not that he was angry that she went to see him. And he didn't agree with letting the baby in. But Geraldine and Alex's auntie Sue convinced him that Jordan had changed and that she was a mother now and he should give her a chance.
It's just such like a motherly slash grandmotherly instinct, though, isn't it? It's just to
Yeah.
love and protect.
And they had like pure intentions as well, because it could have gotten to the point where Alex just like really regretted not meeting the baby
Yeah.
and just felt unhappy later on in life. So she arranged for Alex to meet Thomas without Jordan there, and Alex wanted to take his granddad along with him. It formed a bridge between both Alex and Jordan again. So eventually Jordan moved in with Alex and his family, and everyone was happy for a while. And then on January 1st, 2015, they were Facebook official again.
Oh, good old Facebook official back in the day.
But soon enough, in May 2015, they saw the girl Jordan attacked at the party and they shouted abuse at her. Alex's mum
Both
found
of
out.
them.
According to Alex's mum, it was that they both shouted at her. But then I don't really know how to feel about it, because it's not good that he did this, but she could have been so much in his head and he could have been so scared of her if he didn't join in. Like, what would she do to him if he didn't?
Yeah. And it's also a bit of confirmation bias as well, isn't it? If you're subjected to that time and time again, that seems okay after a while because that's just accepted behavior.
Alex's mum found out about this and confronted Jordan, and then an argument ensued. Jordan told Alex to choose between her and his family. And out of love for her and his son, he moved out and into Jordan's home. He was just 19 years old at this point and didn't see his mum for 2 years.
Can we just take a minute here, actually, to say to anyone who is listening to this, if you're in a relationship where you have to say to someone, it's okay, it's better when we're at home. No, not a good relationship. Get out and go. Because if people from the outside are question how bad it is, you need to reevaluate that. And second, if anyone ever asks you to choose between them and your family, never, ever choose them, ever.
Yeah, and there's so many points, like when his parents said like there's something not right with her, I was just thinking at that age, the person I was with then, I would defend them to the hills. I would have said like you're wrong. But looking back, in my opinion, always believe what your parents think that you're with, because it means a lot.
Yeah.
This is a common tactic used by abusers. Abusers will often take steps using manipulation to separate their partner from their friends and family and create a closed system where there's no one to offer an alternative view or opinion. And the abuser's word then becomes law, and there's no one to care about the victim's sacrifices or to fight their corner.
No escape.
Jordan began accusing Alex of getting with girls when they were broken up and when she was pregnant. He'd deny it over and over again, but she wouldn't believe him. She went as far as changing his phone number and getting rid of his PlayStation because he could use them to contact people he knew. Rule number 1, you don't mess with the boy's PlayStation, but also getting rid of it for the fact that he could contact people on it.
It's just so, and also, if he was with other people when they broke up, so
yeah,
you weren't together, why should that bother you? Well, obviously she's a sociopath, which is why it bothers her, but you're broken up.
And it's like taking people's things away from them as well. This is apparently a really common thing. And I just think it's so disgusting. It's like, it's not your right. You cannot take someone else's things away for whatever reason. Why do you think that you can take control of another person's life like that?
Well, that's what it is, isn't it? It's such like an
authoritarian
move. You treat them as if they're below you because you can do these things to them. You can't do those things to them.
Geraldine was desperate to speak to Alex, so she sent him £1 via mobile banking, and she received, "I hate you, stay away from me" back. Jordan also told Alex her mum received a message from Alex's mum saying that his granddad had died, and he was devastated that he never got to say goodbye. And then a few hours later, Jordan asked him, "Why are you upset?" She lied. She lied about his granddad dying. Yeah, just
what?
And again, she's tested him again to see how he feels about his family dying. It's just nasty. It's just sadistic. So in July 2016, Alex and Jordan left Jordan's family home to live on their own. The first month, he said, was brilliant. It was a nice home and there was no arguing. So nice, in fact, that they decided they'd try for another child, and straight away they found out she was pregnant. But then things started to go sour again when Alex got a new job that he liked, but Jordon said he needed to leave because it wasn't good enough. So this bit, it makes my blood boil. She was going to university and she demanded that he go with her every single day so he couldn't go see his family while she was there. And so that's exactly what he did every single day. She took his wallet off of him and he would sit in the car all day while she went to class.
What with the kids in the car as well?
I think they must have been in the car, yeah.
What if it's like a boiling hot day? Do you know how hot a car gets when it's left in the sun? Like,
yeah.
What?
And there was like an interview with a doctor that he did a few years later, and he said that he used to just sit there sometimes with the music on, sometimes not, but a lot of the time he was just thinking back to when he'd play football with his friends and how did it go wrong.
That's so heartbreaking.
So his best friend Jordan Parker said that Alex had become a ghost and that he himself couldn't listen to Bastille anymore because they were the band they loved and listened to together. And he said that whenever Bastille played in the club, he would think of Alex and cry.
Oh, that's such a generational, like, yearly band reference.
Yeah, I know.
And two, so music's such like an emotive thing though, isn't it? Like everyone's got that one song that can just take them back to that one point in time.
Yeah, because I'm the same age as Jordan and Alex. And literally, I think of Bastille and I just think about going to forest parties in the summer with like all of my friends and they'd be playing. And then I would be like, are you going to go see them at Reading Festival? And it was just they're such a, I don't know, childhood band.
Yeah.
Jordan then took complete control of Alex's social media. Alex's Facebook name changed to Alex Thomas Skeel, but it was Alex spelt with Alix instead of Alex. And when someone asked why in a Facebook comment, supposedly he, except not really, responded that it was so he could be unsearchable to certain people. And Jordan Parker then sent a friend request to this Alex, but he received a reply from Alex's account saying, I've never been your fucking friend. I've always hated you. I've been lying this whole time. So good old Jordan, being the Satan he is, sent back, all right, Jordan, it's finally my turn then, is it?
Oh,
I was
he's like hero of this episode, right?
He is just kind of like a good perspective and honestly a really good friend to Jordan. Lots of people, when their friends are in this situation, they kind of turn their back on them like it's too much, but he stuck around for the whole thing, stuck around for years after. He's now on this documentary and he says quite a lot about domestic abuse. And so, I don't know, I just think he's a really good person.
Yeah. But I do like he called her out. That is a legend move.
And then on the 17th of August, 2016, Alex was sent a message from his granddad saying happy birthday, and he received the response, don't message me again. So the same granddad that she said was dead.
Text him, happy birthday.
Yeah.
But she has his phone and stuff, right? So it's her replying to all these things.
She's taken complete control of it. And then I think any phones that he would have had, she broke. So one day, Alex's auntie Sue found out Alex and Jordan now lived in Stuartby. So her and another friend went to find him and drove around until they spotted an elephant statue in the window. So a weird fact about Jordan, apparently she loved elephants. So she thought it must be their house. They knocked on the door and then all the lights turned off. At one point, a downstairs light came on and she saw the outline of Alex going to the kitchen. The light went out again and he went back upstairs. And so Alex's auntie believed that he hated her. I think he was possibly so out of it that he didn't even notice her outside. Hello, I'm just here to again issue a trigger warning. We are about to begin discussing Alex's physical abuse. If you are likely to be made upset by this, we understand and you can get a bro on and skip to the 34-minute mark, where we will be talking about the end of the case, who Jordan was before all this, and what happened to Alex. So Alex and Jordan went to Winter Wonderland in London, and as soon as she got in, she brought up the subject of him seeing other girls and claimed one of them had messaged her. Which I find is such a weird thing. I know the tactic, but I don't really get it because in my head I'm like, I literally didn't, so that's not true. So you're not then just going to go, oh yeah, I did, even though I didn't. Your approach to relationships is so immature at that age. You don't know how to handle situations, and it takes a lot of growth to be mature in a relationship. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it really is. It really is so much work because it is 50-50, but people are naturally selfish sometimes in any relationship.
So he carried on denying doing anything with anyone, but she didn't believe him. They carried on walking around. And I've been in this situation before, when you're in such a foul mood as a couple and you're walking around wondering what to do next. And she asked, "Are we not going to go?" And he was like, "No, we're here now, so let's not waste the journey." So she told him to go into Boots and get a 1-a-day sleeping tablet. I don't know what her reasoning was for this. And then they'll go. And so he got it, and then he took one, and she told him to put the rest of them in his mouth, and he did what he was told. And Alex doesn't remember leaving Winter Wonderland.
That's horrible. That's almost, have you ever seen oh god, I can't remember the case, but the I Love You Now Die documentary about the girl who was dating the guy who was like suicidal, and she was like telling him to get back in the car and kill himself.
I didn't know there was a documentary on that. I was going to do an episode on that.
We should, do it. It's supposed to be released. I think it's called I Love You Now Die.
Because she wanted a Glee death, didn't she? She wanted to be like Rachel Berry on Glee when Finn died, I think.
I think she was obsessed as well with like Leah Michelle in real life.
The abuse eventually became really systematic. She would hit him with hammers, stab him with knives, and often while he was sleeping, which is just like the worst form of torture, just being sleep deprived. And Jordon said in a police interview that, "I only ever cut him, I never stabbed him." And it's like, well, that makes it okay.
Love. Okay, enough. Yeah. I only cut him till he bleed, but I didn't physically stab him. Well, that makes everything so much better.
And then Jordon later admitted to also having a hairbrush in the car for when they had an argument so she could hit him wherever she could. Alex also wasn't eating properly because she was starving him. She also stopped him sleeping in the bed, and so he slept on the floor because Thomas would sleep in the bed with her and he was too scared to leave them alone.
Oh, that's so sad. Heartbreak.
I just think, because in addition to not being able to sleep because she might hurt you, whenever she gives you a break and then you try and sleep, you can't because you're worried that she's going to take it out on the baby as well. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's all angles. He has no respite whatsoever. But not only that, like if you're as injured as he is, one, it's going to be difficult to sleep through pain anyway, but they're trying to sleep on a floor.
And they're like tending to his wounds on their own, alone, not seeking any medical attention. They're probably infected. They're probably having like injuries upon injuries, healing over each other and then being torn open again. It's horrible.
She needs to fuck off to that gate, Olivia, walk through it, and then just keep on fucking off.
So at 2:30 a.m. on the 3rd of February 2017, Alex called his dad Graham for help. Graham and his mum headed off to the house and all the lights turned off again. Alex tried to get them to go away, but they refused to leave. 2 police cars came and told Graham and Alex's mum to stay in the car while they went in. Then the police came out and said they had a row and put them in separate rooms and they were fine, but your son has a limp. So it's an oversight.
Can we just as well take a minute? And I know that obviously violence against women is very prominent and so many more women are attacked than men, but if this was the other way around, if this was a woman who has been abused by a man, oh yeah, she's fine, but she's got a bit of a limp. Do you think more action would have been taken?
Definitely. And I don't know, because a lot of the neighbours said that we heard lots of things going on, but we assumed it was him doing it to her, even though it was his screams they could hear. So on a later occasion, Alex and Jordon went to see Bastille in Leeds and they had a really good time apparently. But the next morning he woke up to boiling water being poured on his back. And it made me so angry because I think that she knew that whenever Alex heard of Bastille, he probably thought of his best friend that he couldn't see anymore. So she just wanted to take that memory and make it all about her.
Painful.
But that seems to be her favourite thing to do, is just use boiling water on him.
That is bad enough, but can you imagine having boiling water and then those burns being untreated? Must have been agony.
And then being stabbed as well. On May 2nd, 2017, their daughter Iris was born. Alex thought it could change things and she might stop, but it only lasted 3 days. And then 4 weeks after Iris was born, she waited all night with boiling water. And then if it went cold, she'd boil it again. And he was,
That's
after hours...
such torture.
Yeah. And then hours passed, backed into the corner of their study, and she lifted the whole lid up of the kettle and threw it over him. But I just can't, I literally just imagine her in a room by a table with one lamp on, sitting there with boiling water, staring at him and just mentally torturing him for
It
hours and
is
hours.
though. That's what it
Yeah.
is. It's such mental torture. Like, look, look what I can do to you with this. Look at what I can do to you with this.
Yeah.
But also as well, if the neighbors, whether it's like his screams they heard or her screams they heard, if they're hearing that amount of screams, why in the name of God have they not called the police? Why have they not called someone and said something is happening in that house? There's 2 children in the house as well.
I thought that it could have been, well, she's slowly murdering him. Literally, someone could die. And I think also now that people have been locked in with their abusive partners and abusive family members for like over a year now, domestic violence has gone up and people are home to hear it, but people still aren't really ringing in about it. But
I know. I just couldn't imagine hearing that and not
sitting
doing
next door to
something.
it with the TV on, because like a lot of people use the excuse of I'd be embarrassed if there wasn't a problem, or I wasn't involved, or like I didn't want to get involved, and it's like they're not valid excuses.
No. You know what? Like if I was in my house and my neighbors heard screaming and they heard something they thought was worrying, I don't know, I burned myself or some, just something small had happened that was nothing to do with any sort of violence. I would be so much more comfortable if they thought I'm going to phone the police and just make sure.
And it's like, because no one's asking anyone to go running into a knife fight because you hear something, but call the police and be like, can you do a welfare check?
Exactly.
So on June 3rd, she used a bread knife to cut his hand and arm open. Sergeant Ed Finn from Bedfordshire Police, and get ready to fall in love with this man, he's a hero. He knocked on the door after a domestic dispute is rung in by neighbours, finally. Eventually, Jordon came to the door and said, there's a problem, Alex has hurt himself. So it gets worse. They went upstairs and Alex was sat with a towel on his arm and blood everywhere. Both Alex and Jordon said he'd done it to himself. Jordon even said that he had a medical condition which caused him to have bouts of self-harm. Alex then went to the hospital and was put on a drip, and they also had to scrape his skin away. The nurses wanted him to stay as he was about to have surgery, but Jordon was wheeling him out anyway. The nurses brought a consultant down, and he like grabbed Alex's face and said like, are you sure it's safe to go home? And Alex said yes. So Ed Finn, the police officer, knew something wasn't right. The next morning, the first thing he did on his shift was try and track Alex down, but he wasn't able to get hold of him. Then on June 10th, Ed found Alex's address when a call came into the police. Ed and another officer went straight away. He said as soon as he saw Alex and his injuries, he thought he was being abused. Ed entered God mode and separated the two and took Alex upstairs and outright asked him, have you been assaulted? Alex denied it repeatedly and said they were both stressed out because they've had 2 babies. Jordon even entered the room and asked if she could change Iris, which, yeah, fair enough, look after your kid, but I don't believe that's what she was doing.
No.
I think maybe she was trying to intimidate him into not talking or trying to get a feel for what they were saying.
She was 100% doing like witness intimidation on there, wasn't she? She was like, don't you say a word.
So Ed took Alex and they sat in the police car. This is very problematic because in some situations this would be awful for the police to do, but he said to him, you're not leaving here until you tell me the truth. You need help, she needs help, the children need help, you all need help. And Alex still said he was doing it all to himself. Then as soon as Ed turned his camera off, Alex admitted the truth and said it was all her. If it was another police officer who would, like, he was a very young police officer. I think he said that he was around the same age as Alex. But if it was another one who'd been like on the job for multiple years, is a bit older, kind of fed up, he wouldn't have taken this as seriously. And he'd probably be like, all right, you said it's all fine, so I'll go, because it's an easy day. But this guy was like, I'm sticking around, I'm getting to the bottom of this, it's not going to be done anymore.
Yeah, good for him. Literally massively good for him. He did it to himself. He has a condition that makes him do it to himself. Of course he's depressed. You're beating the living shit out of him.
Yeah.
Hater.
Ed went back into the house and explained to Jordon that she was now being arrested for grievous bodily harm. He didn't know what to expect from her because she seemed polite and like a well-mannered lady on the surface. And honestly,
they always do.
In pictures I've seen of her, she does look so clean and put together and she does look beautiful, but you don't think that she's going to be this violent and nasty.
But they never do they? It's always that saying, you never know what was on behind closed doors. The perfect couple, not saying all perfect, beautiful couples, not beautiful couples, but perfect, put together life, perfect Instagram couples are far more likely to have situations like this going on than the ones who just bumble through life as best they can.
Yeah.
The front will always be there for people in this situation. The perpetrator doesn't want to get caught, and the person living with the assault is so bloody terrified of this person and what they say. If they find out they've told them, they as well like dress to perfection, and it's just such a charade.
I just wanted to add this because this makes me really angry and I can't really put it into words. But on the car journey to the police station, she asked, how long will I be in for? Maybe like an hour? Like, no bitch, you're fucking caught. Like, it's gonna be longer than an hour.
An hour. Oh my god.
Like, it's like, is this gonna be quick? Because I've just got to get back to doing my washing.
I put it on a quick spin so it's a little bit smelly if I don't get it out straight away.
So during the police interview, Jordon said the reason she was holding a bread knife was because she just wanted him to come in the house. She also asked where Alex is, and the officer does a good job to redirect this and just asked how old she was. She said she was 22. The police tell Jordon that Alex is excited to return to his family, and they ask if she feels she's been keeping him away from his friends and family, and she denies it and says he doesn't want to see them. Then they ask,
you don't like him.
Yeah. And then they ask, he says you go at him about a period of time you had a break in your relationship and you question him relentlessly and go on about it a lot. And if he doesn't answer you, you become violent. They also asked if when she went a day without hitting him, would she make up for it the next day? And she just went, this is literally how she said it, and it's going to sound like vomit. She literally went, no, I don't know why you'd say that. Jog on, pal. She was asked if she'd subjected him to a lie detector test. She said they only did it once, but what she had done was she bought a £5 lie detector test. It looked like it was from one of these like men's zone shops, whatever. She strapped it to his hand while she had a boiling kettle. It buzzed to say he was lying. He ran off and slammed the door shut. But Jordon said that she had no history of mental health and no bouts of depression and no postnatal depression.
Right. Okay. I've got so many issues with this. First of all, lie detector tests don't work. They really don't work.
No.
You could be someone who is really skilled at lying, and you can know all the ways to, your body to just pass a lie detector test.
Yeah.
They're never admissible in court. I know, like, standing in a kitchen is not a court, but they're not admissible in court. And if you're standing with someone with a kettle of boiling water, what do you expect to happen other than the charts to be like this? They're terrified. They're absolutely, they can't even think straight.
Yeah.
I hate her.
A £5 lie detector test, which is meant to be from like a joke shop or something.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, that's just no.
Yeah.
Jog on. She needs to jog the hell on.
So back in the hospital where Alex was being treated, the doctors said they thought he was about 10 days from death. And one of the police officers brought him a McDonald's. Alex said it was the best meal he's ever had because he hasn't had a warm meal in so long.
Oh, that's so heartbreaking.
Get ready, it gets worse. I cried at this bit. So Alex finally went home to his mum and he laid in his bed and she asked him, can I cuddle you? And he said, yes, I want my mum. It's so sad because I can't imagine being at this age and being so tortured, and just like that first time he lied in bed must have been amazing, but to actually just like cry for your mum when you're an adult is horrible. And I don't blame him for that. I'm not shaming him for that. I think it's awful that he had to feel like that.
It's so I think as well, like when you think about it, like for the level of abuse that he sustained and the level of continuous abuse he sustained, it was in such a short period of time. It's something that sounds like has gone on for decades, like just decades of domestic abuse. Yeah. This was poor Alex.
People don't realise because he's covered in burns, he's covered in bruises, he's covered in stab wounds. But
no, Olivia, just cut wounds, not stab wounds. Fuck off.
But it all started, like the control started with being like, I want your hair this way, I want your clothes this way. Like it started out small, it got bigger, and it was probably planned. But then some people who do this don't realise they're doing it. So on 28th of September 2017, Jordon was charged with 17 counts, including grievous bodily harm and controlling or coercive behaviour. Jordon pled guilty to 3 of her 17 counts, and Alex's mum said she showed no signs of remorse. Then on the 13th of April 2018, Jordon was given 2 7-year sentences for wounding with intent and grievous bodily harm to be served concurrently. And this was along with a consecutive sentence of 6 months for controlling or coercive behaviour, of which Jordon was the first female in the UK to be convicted of this charge. 14 and a half years?
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't seem long enough, but then is that argument though, isn't it? Like, how long should someone be in prison for? Because you're obviously in prison because you're being punished because you've done bad. You've done something wrong that is against the law of the society that you live in.
Yeah.
But what part of, I don't know, I just feel like we don't have enough rehabilitation in our prison system in the UK at the moment.
This was really highly publicised at the time. So many articles out there just slating her, calling her horrible names, like people hated her. I am surprised that she hasn't spoken more in prison, but I guess she's trying to let people forget her. So let's talk a bit about Jordon. So what happened to her as a child? What horrible thing happened to her that wrecked her soul and turned her into a monster? Nothing, absolutely fucking nothing happened to her. She came from a loving and supportive family and was a high performer at school. She had a degree in fine arts and wanted to become a teacher. Can't imagine her teaching my kids, but she did lots of volunteering for unwanted animals and had raised money for children in Africa. So she could have gone on to do really incredible things, but she went the other way.
Yeah, she was someone who had everything in life and just threw it down the trash can.
And I'm not going to slate her for doing volunteer work, because if you're helping children in Africa and you help animals, then good for you. Because I've been watching The Good Place, it's kind of taught me that you're not going to get into heaven for good things you do. It's your intentions behind them. And if your intentions are purely selfish, then you're still not a good person on the inside, really, especially because she is just poisonous.
Well, it's the same thing as I just bought someone a McDonald's who was on the street. Okay, that's nice. Just buy the McDonald's and give it to them. You don't need to broadcast it to the world.
But around these people, you'll normally find a bunch of groupies that support the abuser who say, well, they've never done anything bad to me. If they're so bad, why don't you just leave? And Alex,
why don't you jog the hell on and leave?
Yeah. Alex has said in interviews that he's been asked so many times, why don't you just leave? And it's the most unhelpful thing you can say to someone. Yeah. So A, how is they've never done anything bad to you a justifiable reason to enable abuse that you know is happening? And B, that's victim shaming.
We're just not here for that. Victim blaming. No. Can you imagine if Alex was a woman and Jordon was a man? Can you imagine the degree of injuries that he had in uproar? And rightfully so. I'm not saying it shouldn't be. Rightfully so, there should have been an uproar in regards to that, no matter what gender the abuser or abuser is. But it's just, it goes back to that same thing. Why didn't they just leave? Because they couldn't. They had no means. He had no bank card. He had no phone. He had no means of leaving. Yeah. And completely so many
isolated.
Exactly. And so many victims of domestic abuse are in that same situation. Yeah. So many of them. So when you sit there and you might watch the news and you see how much domestic abuse reports have gone up during lockdown, or you hear the horrible statistic that it's 1 in 3 households. If you just take a minute, wherever you're listening, and look at the number of houses on your street and think 1 in 3. I'm not saying it's any one of your houses in the street, but just think how many out of that street has the potential to be suffering domestic violence. You sitting there saying, why didn't they leave, does not help the fucking situation. Yeah. It doesn't, because they can't. That's like my rant over. You can carry on with thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
So domestic abuse and coercive control are all about taking steps to assert power and control so you don't leave. So I'm going to throw a few buzzwords out there. So this includes trauma bonding, where a person hurts you in some way and then nurses you better, so they create an emotional bond which is resistant to change. Gaslighting, that old chestnut I love so much, gaslighting you so you constantly blame yourself for problems in your relationship, or even not remembering events as they actually happened because they tell you it's all in your head and you made it up. Love bombing, which is one that I didn't really realize was a thing, but it's a massive issue.
It's a massive issue.
Yeah, when an abuser uses a combination of positive and negative reinforcement, including loving words and manipulative behavior to create a feeling of unity and codependency. where they're the only one who can make you feel good and lift you up when you're sad. Even though they're making you sad, they're the only one that can fix you. So the reason I'm saying these terms is because you may not know that you're being controlled or abused when it's happening to you. My years of experience in a toxic relationship, I often think of abuse as a drug. A person creates a bond with you through manipulative tactics, so you depend on them for validation and what you think is love. Then when you're separated from them, they're in jail, or maybe the person just got bored of manipulating you, using you. They got everything they could from you, so they just dropped you to move on to the next thing. You're forced to go through a detox where you just kind of sweat out all the memories. Like, this can happen over years, and then you'll remember an event and just be like, that wasn't right. I can't believe I thought that was right at the time, when it's not.
It's not, like, and I think everyone has been in some version, or not everyone, most people have been in some version of a toxic relationship, granted not to the extremes of this, but I've been in a situation where I was gaslighted for a really, really long time. And they not only manipulated how I saw things, but how people around me saw me, how they perceived me. So I was always the one in the wrong. They would manipulate it so if they were nipping all day, when I finally snapped back, it was when people were there. So I was angry, I was the aggressor, I was the issue. What they didn't see was the stuff that was happening, the build up going on and on and on and on. I remember getting Christmas presents for people in this situation, and then no one, like this person and their family, got me nothing. And I forgot one person was allergic to nuts, and I got her as a part Ferrero Rocher. And I was shamed and blamed for getting a wrong gift. I was told that I was trying to kill her, that this would have happened. And I remember standing there saying, but no one got me anything. It was a mistake. And it's not until you leave, until you're out of that situation, that you realize how long this has been going on for. And it just drags you down so much. And you go through phases where you're just so blue, but you don't know why you're blue, because what this person's telling you must be true. I must be the problem, because look, everyone else's reaction to me is the problem. They're telling me I'm the problem, so therefore I am the problem. And I could never figure out what I was doing wrong. Ever.
Yeah. And they could be, I hate to credit them like this, but they can be so intelligent in the way they do things. Like they can create a fog around you when no one wants to touch you.
Yeah, they are. And it exists to this day. There's still some people I know in my life that view me from this angle sometimes. And the way I am with you or my friends, or, people in, my direct family, things know me as this. But there's some people I still have such a guard up.
Some people's perceptions of you, and like people's perceptions of me, when they've only known me at my worst, it's like, you can't judge me by that, and I can't ever fix what they think of me. I just have to move on with my life. But also, I've spent so long worrying about if I'm a good person because of these people, and then it wasn't until my friend said to me, bad people don't spend this much time thinking about if they're bad or not, and you just have to keep that in mind, because some people do not give a shit. Because I was like that as well. Like, someone kind of like referred to it as picking me up and dropping me. They picked me up, made me feel so good about myself, love bombed me, and then dropped me out of nowhere. And then they picked me up again, did the same thing, and kept doing it. And that only made me go back time and time again. That's why this is a whole bullshit thing of, why did you stay with them? It's because they make it so that you depend on them for your self-worth.
Yeah, they do. They're master manipulators.
So this bit's a nice bit. Alex now coaches a football team, which is sponsored by domestic abuse charity Mankind. And he talks with professionals and groups about how to recognize signs of abuse, and is still seeking therapy, which we're here for.
Yeah.
And in an interview on the Private Stories podcast, Dr. Becky Spellman said that he had gone through post-traumatic growth, which is when someone experiences a trauma, but they grow as a result from it. And he said that he's now looking after his health more than ever, because he's had to like overcompensate so much for how unhealthy he was for the years he was with her. And I think this probably makes Jordon just spin out of her mind, because she can't understand it, and she doesn't want Alex to be healthy or happy without her, because she worked so hard to make sure Alex couldn't live without her. She chose to do this to him because he was a good and talented person with so much love in his life that she couldn't comprehend. Like we talked about, asking, why do your family have dinner together? Why are you upset that your granddad died? It's because he's loved by people.
Yeah, other than you. Well, did she even love him?
It couldn't have been love. It must have just been
obsession.
Yeah, or just an extension of her. Like she needed someone around that she knew would do anything for her. And abusers get satisfaction from making people like this break because it validates their ego that someone could give it all up for them. And leading on from that, and to round off this case, I'm sharing this because if anyone out there who's been through or still in an abusive relationship, hopefully it'll help someone. This really, when I got this, it really just made me feel so much better. I don't know if she wrote it. I'm not going to claim she did, just in case she didn't. But the most healing thing is learning that abusers target you because they can see that you feel and that you love and that life is meaningful to you. They targeted you because you are so exceptional and whole. They gain satisfaction from ruining the lives of those with the furthest to fall. You may not know or feel it now, but I bet the day they laid eyes on you, you knew the dizziest heights of what it means to be human, and you fell further than they ever could because they're so low and hollow already. These people are bored. They are not truly at peace within themselves. They seek constant, reckless stimulation. And one day, when they're too old and worn to be capable of seducing vulnerable souls, they'll die alone. In the meantime, you will have healed. You will have found far more meaning in your life than they ever could in killing everything that's alive or real.
I really like that.
I like that.
Really
too.
good.
So that's it for today. I strongly advise that you all look up statistics on domestic abuse and coercive control because it's not as black and white as people think it is, and it's too much for me to put in one episode. But I think educate yourselves because you really could be the difference between life or death for someone.
And if you are suffering from domestic abuse or know someone who is suffering from domestic abuse, in the episode description we will put the number for the domestic abuse hotline.
Yeah, and we will be sending all of our love
and support.
We're very new to this. We do plan on growing, and we hope that you're liking our content. And if you could please subscribe to us or like our videos or leave a comment or review or anything, then it takes no time, it costs nothing, and it means the world to us, and it really helps us out. And thank you as well to the people who listen to us in Australia. That was a surprise.
Yes, thank you. And thank you very much for the lovely people who have reviewed us on Apple Podcasts so far. It's very appreciated. Thank you very much. See you next week.
Bye.